You're listening to Crossroads Church with Pastor Marcus and Natalie Avalos. The following message was recorded live at our Sunday morning service in Seguin, Texas.
And now the message with Pastor Marcus.
Today, this is gonna be the most practical of all of the messages. So if you've been saying, man, this has been kind of like way out there in the stratosphere, today is so practical that this could change your life. And in fact, if you're here today and maybe your mom dragged you to church and you said, okay, mom, fine, I'll go to church, whatever, and you're not really into the Jesus thing, today what I'm gonna share with you can change your life, and you don't even have to believe in Jesus. Now, ultimately, we want you to believe in Jesus, but I want you to lock in with me today because what we're gonna share with you today, it's a time-tested, proven thing. It comes from a book that sold about 20 million copies. And we're gonna talk about the different languages of love and how we can communicate to each other through love. And because you ever notice that George Bernard Shaw once said, the single greatest challenge in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. Have you ever noticed you talking to somebody and then you walk away and you realize that you guys did not communicate something? You thought you were saying something really clearly. Maybe you poured out your heart to somebody and they walk away and then they ask a question and you say, hold up, you obviously weren't even listening to me. And maybe they don't feel like you were listening to them. And so communication is really challenging. And communication when it comes to people we love can be really challenging because we've all got a unique language of love. So I want to start off telling you a story. Last week, I told you that I got that job with Southwest Airlines when I was about 18 years old. And it was a great job. And about a year in, I had the worst 2 weeks of my life working for that airline. It was the 2 weeks that the Final Four basketball tournament was in San Antonio. So millions of people were flying into San Antonio that weekend, it was 2 weekends for the Final Four basketball tournament. And that 2 weekends, they decided to put me in the baggage service office. So I was put in this little office, and here's the thing about baggage service. I know you guys do, but have you ever noticed that when you get your bag, you never walk up to the person and say at the person at the baggage service office, hey, thanks for getting my bag to me. Nobody ever does that, right? The only reason we talk to the person in the baggage service office is because why? The bag's lost. You ever had that horrible feeling that you turn your bag over to them? And then the worst part is when they've charged you $25 for this wonderful service. And then you get there and the bag does not come off the conveyor and you're watching and everybody's taking their bags off and all of a sudden there's like one bag left and you're watching. Anybody ever had that horrible feeling? Yeah. So I was the guy that you come and complain to. So needless to say, it wasn't a whole lot of positive words I was getting from people. By the time they came to me, they were pretty ticked off. And then things got worse because weather started to hit all over the country, and all these flights started getting messed up. So people were missing their connections, but the crazy thing was some bags would make the connection. So I remember one time when there's like 200 bags on the conveyor belt, and there's not a single person in the claim area. And I'm thinking, what, did the rapture happen here? What happened? And I remember the guy coming in that was bringing some more bags from another plane. He said, dude, I don't have any place to put the bags on the conveyor belt. And I'm thinking, how am I going to get all these bags? So I go out there and start lifting bags off to make room on the conveyor belt for more bags. Get this pile of about 200 bags. And then another flight comes in, no people, but all the bags. So before I know it, we've got 500, 600, maybe 700. I'm thinking up to 1,000 bags at one point in this baggage claim area. And there's no people. And it just keeps getting worse. And then the worst part is I start looking up, where are all these people? And I find out some of them got sent to Austin. Some of them got sent to Corpus Christi. They were just flying to anywhere they could get to and then drive up. So their bags are in San Antonio. They're all over the place. So by the time they get to San Antonio, they're ticked. And I would have people come up to me and say, hey, my bag's not out there. I'm like, come on, man. There's 1,000 bags out there. Something's got to be out there. Just pick one, right? Something will work for you. Just dig through it and see if it's your size. There's bags and and there's nobody there. And so I'm just 2-3 days of this where bags are coming in, and I'm starting to get irritated. And then people are compiling reports with me, and then I've got these guys that are dropping off the bags coming in and be like, hey man, I don't have any place to put the bags. I'm like, well, deal with it. You just figure it out. Clear them off. And so it turns into this nightmare. And the crazy thing about it, so Southwest Airlines at that time, their motto was, we're the airline of love. We love our customers. But man, I wasn't feeling much love after a few days of this, because I was just getting complaint after complaint. And I remember sitting there at one point, and this lady's coming up and telling me this sad story, sob story. And I'm just thinking, lady, I don't care. In fact, I had a lady that used to work with me, and she said this one time. She said, the thing people don't understand is when they lose their bag and they come complain to us, there's only 2 people in the airport that care about their bag. And when you get mad at us, you lose the interest of one of them. Just a little pro tip for you. If you ever lose your bag, be nice to the airline person. It's not their fault. That's the worst part too, is people are saying, you did this, you did that, you did this. I'm like, I didn't do anything. I don't control the weather. So I was not feeling a whole lot of love at that time. And I remember just at one point thinking, I'm drained. I got no more love to give to these people, and I really don't care about their problems. Now, here's what I know about you. Every one of us at some point in our lives, you may be this way this morning, we get so tired, right? We've got so much going on. We've got allergies. We got kids that got problems. We got a spouse that seems like you're just trying to show love, and then they're always wanting more and more. And you say, man, and we all get to a point where we just say, look, I feel completely empty. And we get tired, and we all want to be a loving person. Say, I know, we've been talking about love all month, but man, I just feel empty. I don't have any, in fact, some of us would say this, I'm sorry, I ain't got no left to give. And we feel that way sometimes with our kids, and we want to love our kids, and say, man, you're driving me crazy. I do not know what else to do for you. I don't have any energy. My brain is tired. I'm working extra hours at work. I'm carrying all this overtime. We've got all these problems in our marriage. I'm trying to keep our marriage together, and my kids are over here, and we got problems at school. Or maybe you're trying to keep you're trying to relate to your spouse, and you just, man, I wish she would just understand. I work hard, and why does she need me to give her all this? Can't she just deal with it? And we get into these, and we get tired, and we say, man, I just don't have any love to give. And we all get to a point where we get that way. In fact, some of you, if you kind of look at your heart, you would say, my heart feels like a tank that's about half full. Or some of you say, maybe my tank's down here. And maybe you've been running that way, running on empty in terms of feeling loved for a long time. And you look at your marriage and you say, man, there's no love there. And man, I want to love the guy, but I got nothing to give. Or maybe you're looking at your kids and you say, man, I want to love my kids, but I got nothing left to give by the end of the day. And so we all get to a point where if we're in terms of like having a tank, it's like our love tank gets empty. And here's the reality of it. We've been looking at 1 Corinthians 13, where Paul talks, we've been talking about what love looks like, and we see that love is patient and kind. It says love does not envy or boast. It's not arrogant or rude. And this is the verse we're going to look at this week, specifically talking about what do we do when we feel like we're empty, right? It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. And the challenge we face a lot of times is because we all have a unique way that we receive and give love. A lot of times what happens is we think we're communicating love to somebody, but they're not receiving it as love. And a lot of times somebody thinks they're communicating love to us, but because of a lack of understanding of the reality that we all love in different ways, we all give and receive love in different ways, sometimes you can be around people that you're just not feeling the love, but it's simply a matter of they're not communicating in the language of love that you understand the best. Because every one of us, based on our past experiences and our personality, we experience and receive love in unique ways. In fact, there's 5 specific ways we're going to talk about this morning, these 5 languages of love. And I want to look at it specifically from this reality because love, it doesn't insist on its own way. And a lot of times we're trying to love people in the way that's familiar to us, and it's not computing to them. And so we just get angry and we feel like we're giving love, and we say, man, I'm empty. I don't know what to give you. And they're feeling empty, and you say, I don't understand how you're feeling empty because I'm trying to give you all the love I got. But the fact is we're not communicating in the same way because we've been insisting on loving in our way rather than loving in the way that translates to them. And a lot of time it's just simply a lack of knowledge. So this morning I want to share with you these 5 love languages. And I'm telling you, if you can lock this down, this can change a lot in your work relationships. It can change a lot in your relationship with your kids. It can change in your family. It can really change your marriage if you start to understand that the people around you all give and receive love in different ways. And what you think is love sometimes doesn't really fill up their love tank. And sometimes what they think is giving you love is not filling up your love tank. And when you learn what these languages are and can communicate them clearly, it can change everything for you, and you can start to feel loved. But the key is recognizing this. Love starts by not insisting on communicating love in its own way. So let's start looking at these 5 different ones. The first language of love we're going to look at is the best one. It's mine. I'm just kidding. It's not the best, but it's mine. Words of affirmation. Words of affirmation are simply encouraging words, specifics about things that you like about that person. So for example, this week, man, my love tank is full. You guys are lucky, so you guys are kind of quiet this morning, but I don't care. I feel loved anyway. Because I got some great emails this week from people saying, man, I read your blog and this was so encouraging. I was like, yes, thank you. And they were very specific things, very blogs that really meant something to them. And so me being a words of affirmation guy, all of a sudden my love tank is going, I feel so loved. I feel loved. People love what I'm doing. Right? And then I went to the church we used to go to in Houston this week. And as soon as I pulled up in the driveway, somebody said, Joel, wow, I miss seeing you. And so, man, my love tank is full this morning. So there's nothing y'all can do to get me down. But here's the thing. I have to, and this is just the reality of it. If words of affirmation is your thing, you need this on a regular basis. You need words of encouragement. And the worst thing you can do for somebody who's a words of affirmation person is give them criticism that's not cautiously given. A couple weeks ago, I was speaking at a church, and I asked Emily afterwards, how'd I do? And I think she was having a bad day, and she said, I don't know, left me feeling kind of depressed. I said, what do you mean it left you feeling depressed? I said, it was so encouraging. She said, not really. I said, and then after she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said it that way. But man, talk about just like the words of affirmation build me up, man, the criticism given to people who are words of affirmation, if it's not given carefully and gently, man, it'll drain our tank. And I remember the whole week thinking, I should give up on this speaking thing. I'm horrible at it. My own wife doesn't even think I can. It was a bad week for me, right? This has been a good week, but that's the reality of it. For people that are words of affirmation, very specific things. Hey, here's what I like about you. And this is the thing. One time, I heard somebody say one time, listen, sweetheart, I told you I loved you when I married you, and I'll let you know if anything changes. That doesn't work for words of affirmation people, okay? You've got to constantly, and you say, well, they're a vortex. It's okay. Give them words. You're your own vortex. You just don't realize it. Give them words, and if they're feeling down, the best thing you can do for somebody who's words of affirmation is encourage them with some sincere thing. You know what I like about you? I like this about you and that, and make it sincere. The second love language is receiving gifts. Now, in some ways, this is a really great one. It's an easy one. It's pretty straightforward, but in some ways, it's really complicated. Because people who are about receiving gifts, this is the important thing with people who receiving gifts is their love language. It's not the gift, it's the thought that's the important thing, but the thought is really important. So these people, they're awesome people because they pay attention to really, really specific details about you, and they'll listen to you as you're talking, and they'll take note of it, and you'll say, man, I wish I had this, and then a couple days later, they show up with that for you, and say, how'd you know? And it's because they were listening, because they're always listening to how can I provide this need of giving them, give them a gift that meets this need they've articulated. So Pastor Natalie, this is her gift right here. But here's the thing about it. Man, they're great at giving gifts. It costs Marcus a lot of money, but they're great at giving gifts, but here's the thing. You better be careful. In some ways, not giving a gift is better than giving a sloppily thought through gift, right? So I'm a gift card person. I'm like, somebody's got a birthday coming up, I'll get them a gift card. Right? Let them figure out what they want. Yeah, not a good call with people who's receiving gifts. That's kind of offensive because they've put a lot of thought and love into what they're giving, and they want you to do the same thing. They ask you to do the same thing, but for some of us, that's hard. I'm not a gifts guy. I like a nice gift, but it's not like it makes me feel, I feel on top of the world. But man, for receiving gifts, if you put thought into it, it makes a big difference. So if you're married to somebody like this, you better figure this one out. And here's the other thing about this. Does not work to bail you out of a mistake you've made. So you've messed up and you bring the flowers, the person who's receiving gifts will say, I don't care about the gift. You're a jerk, right? You need to get it figured out. So receiving gifts, you don't use to bail you out of a situation. This is an unprovoked gift. I was thinking about you. I heard you say this the other day, and you bring them the gift, and man, they'll feel loved. They'll feel really loved. Now, here's a third one. Acts of service. I had a couple people come up to me afterwards and say this was their love language. And acts of service, this is actually my mom's love language. And I knew that, but I'd forgotten about it. And I remembered the other day that she commented on something. And unlike my other siblings, I try to call my mom at least every 2 or 3 days. And she always says, thank you so much for thinking of calling me. It's just a simple call. I just call in to check in on her. And it's not a long call, but man, it means so much to her because it was an act of service. I thought to call her. And so for people like this, man, the best thing you can do, and in many ways, they're pretty easy to please, just do stuff without being asked. Wash the dishes. You don't need to get them a big diamond ring. Just wash the dishes. They're actually kind of low maintenance in a lot of ways. Just do the dishes. Take out the garbage. Do simple things for people that are acts of service, and man, they'll feel loved. But a lot of times, if you're not thinking about it, sometimes we're just so self-absorbed, we just don't think, and well, the dishes will wash themselves eventually, right? No, someone's going to do those dishes, right? And when you do that without having to be asked, that's the really important thing with them is do it without being asked. And that's how you'll show love to them. So if you've got somebody in your life that you've discovered that's their gift, do it without being asked. And you'll see, man, you'll see a difference in the way they respond to your love. It'll communicate in ways to them. Just simple things. And you don't have to do these grand, extravagant expressions, just small expressions. Now here's a fourth one. This is the worst one. Quality time. This is my wife's love language. Now, this one's horrible. Because unfortunately, quality time doesn't count when I'm listening to her ramble and scrolling through Facebook. Quality time means you put the phone away, you turn off the TV, maybe you turn off the music, and you just sit and listen to what's going on with them. Dedicated, focused time. And listen, guys, for some of us, I know that's torture. It's hard. We want the football game on or the basketball game on, something in the background so we can at least be, yes, sweetheart, right? So, but quality time is completely focused attention, and this is hard. And here's what's really hard for Emily and me. We talked a few weeks ago about how we're always together because I work out of home. Man, sometimes I'll get quality time ambushed. So I'm sitting in my office typing away, and she'll open the door and be like, hey, guess what I just found out? And I'm on like a stream of consciousness. I'm thinking, I'm writing. And then she gets mad. She's like, forget it. I'll tell you later. And then I'm like, all right, now I got to go damage control here. And so I leave and, right, I got ambushed. So we had to figure out, how do you like set up these quality time moments? Because sometimes she'd want the quality time, and because I'm at home, hey, it's not, pop into his office. He's not doing anything important, right? No. She doesn't think about that. She just says, I want to hang out with my husband. So this quality time is important. And what's challenging for us is because we're together all the time, establishing times for it. And again, I feel sometimes I'll go, sometimes she'll stop and she'll go, did I just ambush you? I'm like, yeah, you ambushed me. So she knows now if she comes in, she'll crack the door. Sometimes I'll hear her pacing outside the door. Look inside. And I'm typing, and Natalie said, you do that to Marcus too? You hear the door. So she'll come and she'll say, are you busy? I say, yeah. And so then I can focus that dedicated time, because otherwise she walks away feeling hurt, like I didn't get it. And quality time, man, it's so important. And it's really hard because this phone's the enemy, man. In fact, quality time people, you hate those phones sometimes because you just can't get anybody's undivided attention anymore. But man, and here's the thing, all of us need an element of this. And the louder the world gets and the busier it gets, this speaks volumes when you're willing to take time with people. I was talking to Emily the other day about something, and she always jokes that people just, like in the grocery store line, they'll unload their whole life story and tell me all their baggage. Like, why does that happen? She said, I think a lot of the time just because you just sit there and act like you've got time. Like, man, I got to get better at acting like I don't have time. But that's the case, man. There's so many people just longing for somebody to listen to them. And if you can show this love through quality time, and we're going to talk about this in a second because, man, Jesus, he exemplifies all of this for us. But let's go through this last one. This last one, that's the important thing. Be present. No distractions. You've been in a conversation where you know they're not present with you. They're thinking of something else, right? You've been in those conversations, so no distractions. And the final one is this, physical touch. Now, men, focus here for a second. This is really important. Physical touch, we're going to keep this G-rated. Let me put this really simple. Touch with no agenda. Know what I mean? You know how guys are. We got an agenda. Yeah, Mark says that's the sixth love language. No, but sexual relationships do fit into this. But people that are physical touch people, they're not looking for a sexual relationship. And that's the challenge for guys. Because, man, once a guy gets rolling, it's all over. So, guys, what you got to do if you have somebody in your life that's this way, all they want, man, is they just, man, hold their hand, put your arm around them. If it's a work relationship, be very cautious, but pat them on the shoulder. Hey, good job, right? And you don't need to rub their shoulder or anything, but hey, good job. Physical touch, again, it's no agenda other than, man, I want you to know that you're loved. And for people like my dad's this. So, man, when I go give him a big bear hug, I can tell Dad, I love you so much. You were such a great dad. And I tell him this stuff. And I know he likes hearing that, but you know what he loves more than that? And when I give him a hug, I know, big bear hug, he feels loved. And this is a big one. And it's hard in the male-female relationships, if you're in romantic relationships, because guys, man, once you get things clicking. So you got to keep it. No agenda. No agenda. You got that? Okay. So here's the thing about all these. Jesus exemplified all of these kinds of love. And this is really important. I want you to understand this morning. The love you really, really want is never going to come from a human being. So if you're looking for your spouse or that boyfriend or those kids to fulfill that deep love that you need in your heart, that love tank, it's not going to come from a person. And some of you, the frustrations and anger and resentment you've got right now are because you've been looking for a person to give you something only God can give you. But he exemplifies all of these. If you look at Jesus' life, you see that, man, first of all, words of affirmation. Just open the Bible if you want words of affirmation. Read through the Psalms. You see lots of affirmation from the Lord. You see him giving amazing gifts. A lot of you know that. You say, man, God's giving me gifts I totally don't even deserve. Some of you are sitting next to that gift you don't deserve. God gives us gifts. He's acts of service. He came down, he served us. He actually served us. He showed an example of one time washed the disciples' feet, and they're saying, what are you doing? He said, no, I need to show you an example of servanthood, of what serving others looks like. And he shows his, all of these different kinds of love. And some of you say, well, how do I get physical touch from Jesus? Here's the cool thing about it. He left us in a body of believers, to be that physical touch from others. And listen, you and Jesus may have it figured out, but you're never going to make it in this world if you don't learn to live with those around you and let Jesus come through as the tangible expression through the body of Christ. And I talk to people all the time, and they're struggling, and they show up at church when they're struggling, and then when everything gets good, they leave. And then they come back and say, why didn't anybody care about me? We don't even know who you are. You only show up when things hit the fan, right? That's not how it rolls. I mean, I hate to be blunt, but I say this as lovingly as possible, but man, you got to be connected with the body because this is a tangible expression of God's body. And if you're only showing up when everything's getting the fan, then you're crying and asking God to bail you out. We don't even know who you are. We don't know the challenges you're facing. You got to be tied in. And that's why we push these grow groups. It's not just so we can have one more thing. People say, look, the church is doing good stuff. No, we really believe in the power of these things because if you're in one of these grow groups, you know things get hard. You may be getting that fight with your spouse. You get the call from school about your kid. You don't know how to deal with it. Man, those grow groups are a great place. You can call the people and you can say, hey, man, would you pray with me about this? And that's the physical touch of Jesus showing himself through the body of Christ. And listen, again, I say this as lovingly as possible, but you're not going to make it. You're not tough enough to make it if you're not tied in with the body. And I'm talking about being in church as much as you can and not just coming in here, listening to the message and bailing as quick as you can to get to the taqueria. I'm talking about getting connected, hanging out and talking to people. I'm telling you, I've been doing this for 40 years now, and I've seen it over and over again. The people who, they stay strong and they go from glory to glory and the next level to the next level are the ones who they say, you know what, it's going to take some energy. It's going to take some quality time, spending time with these people. I'm going to have to share a little bit of the baggage that I don't like telling people about, but we all got it. And you get connected with the body of Christ, and then you start to feel his love. And you feel that love that he shows in all those expressions, and he knows the kind of love that you need. But the great thing is, man, when you're connected in the body of Christ, that's how you feel literally, tangibly the love of Jesus. I want to encourage you, man, get in one of those grow groups because this is not enough just on Sunday morning. The world's out, man, the world wants to destroy your marriage. The world wants to take your kids away from you and teach them all sorts of things that you don't believe in. And you've got to be tied in with the body of Christ. I'm rambling now, but this is so important. I talk to people every week, and I say, man, are you tied in with the church? Well, no, I got hurt one time. I said, welcome to the club. That's part of the deal, man. If you're hanging out in church, you're going to bump into people, and they're going to try and love you one way, and you needed another, but that's just the deal, right? But here's the thing about it, man. We've got to understand the way that different people are loved because love doesn't insist on its own way. And my goal this morning for you, this understanding these 5 love languages, is for you to understand what your love language is, and then understand what the love language of those around you is, because there's a good chance that maybe if you're feeling empty, it's because they're trying to love you, but they just don't know how to love you. And so you can communicate how you need to be loved, right? And there's a verse, it says, those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. And for some of you, you say, man, I don't have anything left to give. I got nothing left to give. I'm drained. My love tank is completely on empty. And I want to encourage you this, man, exert a little bit more energy, but make it focused, directed energy, showing love to somebody around you in the way that they need to be loved, not insisting on your own way. Do something maybe a little uncomfortable. And I'm almost certain, I can guarantee you that once they get a little of their love tank filled up, they're going to want to give that love back to you in the way that you've communicated you need love. But sometimes you've got to initiate that, and you got to figure it out. So there's a test that you can take online. It's the 5lovelanguages.com. I'd encourage you to take that. If this is new material to you, you say, man, or maybe say, I remember taking this one time and I don't remember what it is. Figure out what your love language is, and then figure out what the love language of those around you is. Man, if you're married, you better figure out what your spouse's love language is, because you need to know this, right? And then here's what I want to leave you with for action steps for this week. First, figure out the love language, your love language, and the language of those closest to you. Write it down, maybe. Write it down, because we forget this stuff. I forget it all the time. Sometimes I have to remind Emily, hey, words of affirmation is my love language. And sometimes she has to go, quality time is my love language. We just forget. We get so busy, and we have to be reminded. So figure out what it is. Maybe write it down and keep a notebook. So when you start to feel a little bit drained, say, I bet they're feeling a little bit drained too. I think we've been maybe trying to communicate love on our own terms and what we want instead of communicating love in what's the best interest of the other person. Then secondly, I want you to do this. Express your love to those around you in their language. And that may be uncomfortable. And man, you may have been married for 30 years and you say, well, we're still together. I don't need to do this. Listen, if you want to take the romantic spark back into your marriage, just do this. And you'll see. I meet a lot of people that they're just so hard-headed, they're never going to get divorced. But man, the love has been gone a long time. But you can reignite that. You can reignite that when you choose to say, God, man, I want to love the people around me in the language that's clear to them, in the way that they're going to understand it. And he'll give you the power to do that, even if it's uncomfortable. And then the third thing is this. Don't be afraid to let other people know your love language. Once you've shown love to others, it's okay for you to say, hey, honey, just so you know, acts of service is my love language. And you don't have to make, manipulative hints. But sometimes we just don't know. And sometimes if you haven't communicated, again, we're thinking we're loving. We all want to be loving people. We're thinking we're loving, but maybe it's in a language that isn't even computing. So if you're feeling like your love tank is empty, stop and evaluate it and say, you know what? Acts of service is my thing, and I could, maybe you need to communicate that to those around you. And because here's the thing, I really believe that most of us, we want to love the people around us. We want to love. That's part of being a Christian. Christ's love comes in, we feel that love, and we want to love others. But we get to a point sometimes, if we're not careful, where the tank gets empty. And we need to be refilled with that tangible expression of love in the way that we understand it. And when you do this, then I believe that God's going to do some amazing things. And some of you, your relationships, you're frustrated with them. You think, man, it's hopeless. It's beyond repair. Let me tell you this. When God's love gets involved, there's no relationship that's beyond repair. God's love can come in, and you may not even get it. You may only get it 50% right trying to love them, not insisting on your own way of loving, but loving on the way that they understand. You may only get it 50% right, but here's the cool thing. When you make the effort, God's grace, he'll come in and fill in the gaps. You've just got to at least make the effort. Do it with all your heart, sincerely, and you may get it wrong. You may not get it all right, but his grace will come in and fill in the gaps. And then he can restore relationships. And you may maybe hear this morning, and your relationship with God is off. You know it's not right. And we're going to give you a chance in a second to get that right, but I want to encourage you, man, you can't out-sin God's love. I don't care what you did in the last 10, 20 years, maybe your whole life. You've just messed it up. And you hear this morning and say, man, I've done way too much bad for God to ever love me. Listen, you're not good enough or bad enough for God's love to not cover it. You can't do it. You're not big enough to God's love is it's the most powerful force in the universe. And his love is there for you this morning if you'll just embrace it. That's that love that we talked about at the start of this, and we've been carrying it through. It's that agape love. It's unconditional love. It's not based on how we feel. It's not based on the person that we're loving receiving it even. It's a decision. I'm going to love you, and that's how God calls us to love others. I'm going to love them. No matter if they receive it, I'm going to love them, but I'm going to do it wisely in the language that they understand. And when we love like that, man, it changes the world. It really does change the world. And here's the thing about it. It's almost an impossible call to do, to love people like God loves. But he calls us to do impossible things, and he says, nothing's impossible for me. So if you'll lean on God's power to love those around you, that annoying boss at work, those kids who are driving you crazy, that spouse that you just say, man, I've had it. There's just no way. He's unlovable, right? God can give you the power to love, and a lot of times it just takes a little bit of insight. So I want to encourage you guys. It's one thing to walk out saying, wow, I feel a little bit smarter. Whoop-de-doo. This doesn't mean anything if you don't learn how to apply this, okay? Learn to apply this and say, man, And maybe have a conversation with your kids. Get your kids to take the test. What's their love language? You've been struggling with a kid. He's been misbehaving at school. You say, what's the problem here? Maybe you need to communicate love in a different way because love doesn't insist on its own way. Love chooses to love how the other person is going to feel it the most. You guys receive that? Man, I'm praying amazing.
Thank you for
stuff.
joining us. We trust that this message enriched your life in some way. If you would like a copy of this message in its entirety, you can find it free of charge when you visit us via the web at www.crossroadsc.com.